Welcome back, my lords and ladies, to the Cast Beyond the Wall. We are your guide to all things Westerosi, and we're here to bring you a review, analysis, and fan v fan debate on each episode of HBO's hit show, Game of Thrones. And this week, we're discussing the events of Season 6, Episode 5, The Door. Hold the door!
Oh, come on.
It's too soon. It's way too soon.
Is it too soon to podcast about this? In fact, do we need a few days, guys?
I might need to take a hiatus.
I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and I have decided formally I can no longer in good conscience hold any more doors for people ever. So, yeah, that's kind of my new shtick, guys. So if you see me in public, not holding the door for you. I'm sorry.
Austin Lucari here, and this week we learned that democracy is not all it's cracked up to be in Westeros.
Wait. I don't know. I thought it was a pretty accurate. Well, you know, we'll get to that. America. All right. Other co-hosts, sir.
Daniel Stoll, and I think it's time we do something, guys. Too many dire wolves have passed on this show, and it's time that we take it to HBO and we do something about this.
Stoll, you didn't watch the credits. I'm sure they kind of note in the credits that, you know, no actual wolves or animals were harmed in the making of this show. I'm sure, right? Although there are dire wolves, so maybe, you know, fictional animals aren't really safe. I don't know.
Exactly. So we need to the two that are left. They have to be kept alive.
Yeah, they have to procreate. We need a lot of little direwolf puppies.
Oh God! Every week, guys, I have to deal with this every week. All right. This year, we're podcasting with our good friends and gracious host at the Good Trash Media Network. Now, the Good Trash Media Network, for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time or haven't been paying close attention to our announcements this season, it's a website dedicated to taking your experience watching TV and film beyond the screen and onto your mobile listening device. Why? Because we believe that TV and film is so much more than just 90 minutes and a bucket of popcorn, or in the case of the Cast Beyond the Wall, 60 minutes and a glass of Dornish wine. Now, you can track all of the posts that we have here on the Good Trash social media at facebook.com/goodtrashmedia, or you can hit us up on Twitter at good_trash. And we got some real fun listener feedback this week that I think I'm really excited to talk about. But first, we are joined by a guest host this week. I'm very, very pleased to be joined by a local Oklahoma filmmaker and the director of the upcoming film Electric Nostalgia, just on the eve of its premiere. Right?
Yeah, just like 2 or 3 weeks away.
3 weeks? Yeah, it all blurs together anymore, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. So we're joined by the writer, producer, director, Jacob Burns. Hey, welcome to the Cast Beyond the Wall.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
We're really excited to have you on, but I feel like your film, it's kind of this genre film, and I feel like people who watch Game of Thrones are probably it'll be in their wheelhouse, right?
Totally, yeah, and I like how Game of Thrones fulfills a lot of those genre expectations of the action and the blood and guts and stuff like that. Our film is a sci-fi thriller, and it fulfills those the things you expect from that, but it's also very rooted in character and story, very similar to Game of Thrones.
Yeah, very, very cool. So what you're telling me is, are you spoiling it? So like when I watch the film and I meet the main character, I'm like, he's dead. She's dead. I don't know their names from the film.
Yeah, the body count isn't as high as Game of Thrones in our film.
So I'm going to be able to sleep the night after the premiere.
They couldn't afford that many actors.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're doing the film, which is really, really exciting. That's going to be premiering, if you're local here in the Oklahoma City area, that's at Dead Center Film, the Dead Center Film Festival. We actually have a lot of nationwide listeners. We're very pleased. So that could be coming, if you're not in the Oklahoma City area, that could be coming to a festival near you at some point, or hopefully we'll see distribution.
As whoever accepts us, we will go to them.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited. And now you have another web series you're working on as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm the co-host of a web series called Talkies, Interesting Discussions with Interesting People, and we find kind of leaders in the film and arts community, especially around Oklahoma, and just kind of talk with them for a long time and just kind of learn about what they're doing and why they do what they do.
Awesome. I've been up for the last 3 of them, and I really dig it. I mean, because, I think it's really easy for a lot of, with entertainment, everyone gets so focused on your LAs, your Austins, your New Yorks, and stuff like that. Sure. But the thing is, and I mean, I can attest to this, Austin. I lived in Phoenix for a bit as well. There are a lot of really cool things going on in these metropolitan, especially as these other metros. People actually want to invest in their city and the arts and film, and it's really exciting now that the technology and I feel like the kind of the passion has really started to thrive in the last kind of 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely, and just like for film cultures and art cultures to thrive in all these different cities, people need to be like studying it as well, not just making films and making art. So people need to be talking to the artist and studying it and kind of cultivating that culture.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's super exciting. Austin, I hear you'd be pleased to hear eventually. I really hope you get a chance to catch the movie, because I've heard that Primer was kind of one of your inspirations to some degree, right?
Yeah. Favorite of mine.
Some people who have seen the movie or seen the trailer, that's a movie they kind of list as kind of having a similar vibe and kind of tone. So yeah, definitely Shane Carruth and kind of those psychological kind of sci-fi films. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is I'm talking to the next Shane Carruth. That's what I'm hearing right now.
I'll let others decide about that.
All right, very cool. Now, but you're also avid Game of Thrones watcher, am I right?
For sure, yeah. I've watched since the beginning.
Since the beginning. So you actually watched it like since it debuted in season 1?
Correct.
Oh, you've been watching longer than I have. Holy crap! Yeah, I did hop on the wagon until season 2, but it has been a ride. I mean, obviously podcasting about it, so I love the show, but I think it's doing really interesting things, subverting genre tropes, and I feel like really trying to tell this really powerful story about human nature and just how a larger look at how the world works and interacts with each other between politics and environment. And, obviously have that kind of fantasy bend to it, but how all these little things, family, all kind of intermingle and how it's all a little messy. So now, so you haven't, but you've been watching since the beginning. Have you read any of the books?
I have not, actually.
Okay. All right. Very good. Austin, you got the second week in a row, bud. You've got two. You got on your team.
The smart people don't read. So.
That's
is that it?
College? That's the secret? Getting smarter, not reading the book.
It's overrated.
We're very, very thrilled to have Jacob on this week, and I'm really excited to kind of talk to you about the episode and maybe the season at large here. So now, before we head into our recap, guys, we do have a little bit of feedback this week. We have some special bits of listener feedback. Austin has something he's really excited to share with us, but first,
I'm not excited.
You should be excited, Austin. This is the best thing that's ever happened to you. But hold on. Listen, but first, before Austin gets to his little gift here, I just want to give a shout out to our newest patron, Carrie Rayburn, who is a Cast Beyond the Wall listener. She found out about Good Trash Media through the Cast Beyond the Wall because she likes Game of Thrones, and she is now a patron. And we want to say, Carrie, thank you so much for your support. We're really, really glad to hear that you're listening to us every week. And if you ever have any thoughts or opinions, go ahead and feel free to comment on the website or whatnot. Or tweet at us or Facebook or however you want to communicate, because we'd love to talk to you. But thank you so much for your patronage, and it's a real pleasure to have you on board. Now, Austin, so
this is totally unacceptable.
We have listeners that love you so much that they sent you something in the mail. Am I right?
Well, so yeah, I got this package from Romania and it had like 1 million stamps on it. I was actually a little terrified to open it. I didn't know what it was going to be or who it was from.
Got to watch out for the powder.
But I opened it up and it's this. You can check my Twitter. There's a picture of it on there, and it's actually my profile picture right now. But it is the most like dramatic painted headshot of Sam Tarly, and he's just looking really sad and despondent because Sam doesn't have a whole lot to live for in his life. And but yeah, we had a couple listeners send me this gift because they hate me and they want me to suffer.
So what I'm hearing, listeners, is if you want to show your love for Austin, send him autographed Samwell pictures. You've actually got it's framed too. So
it is framed. It is going to go on the wall, just as a out of respect for someone who took the time to send me a gift.
You can look up at the wall every single day. You look over and you see my hero, Samwell Tarly, every day. Thank you so much to our listeners who sent Austin that. Please continue to send him someone please get him a Samwell pop head or something. I don't know. Just keep doing it. I need to see this. His reaction in our chat was quite funny. I was shaken to tears. I think it's time for us to go ahead and head into our discussion of this week's episode, The Door.
Sansa.
Did you know about Ramsay?
Does death only come for the wicked and leave the decent behind?
Who makes a claim?
I claim the Salt Throne.
Knowledge has made you powerful, but there's still so much you don't know.
Bran, wake up!
As always, before we head into kind of the scene-by-scene breakdown here, I kind of want to get everyone's brief thoughts about the episode overall. Like, how did you feel? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? And we'll start with you, Mr. Daniel Stoll.
I think Game of Thrones delivered another great episode this season. We've had a lot of really good ones. I thought this one was just another one that kept up with the faster pace, and a lot of things are happening, so it was very exciting to watch. There are a lot of implications that this episode may have on the rest of the series, or maybe even what has happened in the past, which I'm sure we'll get into that. But I also think that this may have been one of the most emotional episodes I've ever watched in Game of Thrones, and that's including, Ned in season 1 and Red Wedding in season 3. I just the way that the scene the ending, just really hit me hard. Very emotional scene, so that was really cool to experience, even though it is tragic and sad. But yeah, I really, really did like this episode. What about you guys?
I thought it was a really good episode. We talked about this a little bit earlier. My initial emotional reaction was that it was an amazing episode, and it was really, really good. It was bracketed, I think, by 2 really, really strong scenes in the Kingsmoot, which wasn't exactly the first scene, but it was very early. And then we have, of course, the final scene, which everyone remembers. The scenes in the middle were good. They were some decent scenes, but they weren't anything spectacular. Just kind of furthering some plots a little bit.
Jacob, kind of what are your thoughts about the episode?
I thought it was great. I thought I was telling you earlier that when you first asked me to come on here, I was a little disappointed that I missed last week's episode to talk about, and I was like, oh man, well, I'm sure the next episode will be good too. And then of course it was great. And so I think there was just a ton of strong writing and even on production level and direction level, just a lot of great stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones is so exceptional at bringing those high end just set pieces, like that. I mean, it doesn't look like a TV show. That the last 10-minute stretch, the thing at the tree, which is relative to some of the stuff we've seen, is smaller, but man, it just looks like a $150 million budget film.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also really like this episode. I don't know. The ending bit it's emotionally it works. It works 200%. Like I had all the feels with our good Hodor stuff. But it's one of those things as I've thought about it, I'm not sure how well it. I don't know if I was given enough information. I don't know. We'll talk about it in the scene, but there's some things about that the final scene that didn't quite sit well with me from a storytelling perspective, less so from an execution and production. Really great direction from Jack Bender, who's an old Lost alum, for those of you who watched Lost. I think we got, again, full steam ahead, guys. This is each episode is packed tight. Things are moving. We talked about this all on and off air. I mean, the pacing for this season is just on fire. It's a runaway train at this point. Every scene means something. Austin, I want to do you a favor, buddy. We're gonna start off with the Iron Islands. We'll go with them first. We're gonna start with that first big set piece, so to speak, or that big scene. And this is probably the meatiest scene I think the Greyjoys have ever had. Period.
I would say so. I can't think of anything of more substance than this. I mean, we get a lot of information about kind of some cultural traditions and things like that, and really a look at how their government is very different than anything else that we've seen in the Game of Thrones universe. So yeah, they're the only real democracy that we've seen so far, unless I'm forgetting something. And you have Yara here, who's staking her claim. Theon throws her support behind her, which she was a little afraid that he may not. People speaking out was like, well, you're a woman. We have Theon here. He can lead us. And he immediately just throws his support right behind Yara. But the wrench in the whole thing was Euron showing up, which the audience knew. Yara did not know that he existed, but she quickly pieced together the fact that Euron was the one to kill her father. But for the Ironborn, killing your brother is not a big deal. Just means you're the stronger, bigger guy, a lot like the Dothraki. Kind of see a similar approach to leadership in that way. And Euron was able to win over everybody with his grand plan of building lots of boats and marrying some girl, which didn't really seem like that much of a plan, but it was apparently enough for them. I don't understand, but it was really kind of half baked. It's like someone who just is sitting around drunk one night. Yeah, we could totally do that. But just build some boats and then go marry this chick. We're good. I mean, what did you guys think of the whole election process?
I Did you guys watch that scene? Every dude in that scene said I to everything. I was like, apparently it doesn't take much to win these guys' respect. He's like, yeah, I like everything you're saying. And then Euron shows up and they're like, yeah, I like that too. So yeah, let's go do something. I mean, okay. And I thought it was very funny. It was very Pirates of the Caribbean-y-esque, from the first one, when they're like all in that treasure room and they're all just cheering whatever gets said. I thought it was quite funny, honestly. Jacob, what did you make of the scene?
Yeah, I'd like to talk on Euron in talking about his plan seemed very half-baked. During that whole scene, the whole time I kept thinking, this guy is essentially Donald Trump.
Yes.
In the Game of Thrones world.
Yes,
he's making
totally.
grand, like exactly the same, like these grand plans and grand idea. Essentially, he's like, we're gonna go to the Dothraki and make them pay for our war. Like, exactly. It's crazy. And so I just thought that was really just very interesting parallels to the world we live in versus the world of Game of Thrones. I just thought that was the main thought I had during that whole scene.
Yeah, Obama. I mean, Balin. Look, guys, we lost 2 wars because of that guy. I mean, come on now. But I know I'm the best. I'm Euron, man. I know what's going on.
They love me. The Dothraki, they love me.
They love me. Daenerys, who? She's gonna look at me and say, "Hey, I've got money." So, come on, yeah. No, it was really great. There's actually some great. I'm glad you brought that. There's some really great, because of how fast the internet works. Some great memes and stuff out there about Yara is like Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. Euron over there, and no, I think that's a great point. Stoll, I think you were a little less confident about this scene. Am I right?
I mean, it was interesting to see a different side of Westeros that we don't normally see, in the fact that there is a voting process. It's not just a I'm the heir, so I get the throne. So that part is interesting. But I felt like this whole thing, you guys kind of already mentioned it. I really thought his plan was terrible. I mean, true, he probably doesn't really know what he's getting himself into with Daenerys, but I honestly could see him rolling over and be like, hey, here I am with my boats. And she could just be like, you have boats, and I could use boats, and then killing him and all of the people, and then just stealing his boats, and he just gets everybody killed. I just really feel like his plan is not a very good one. And especially if he goes across being that kind of cocky douchebag guy that he was, she's definitely going to kill him. So I don't know. I just really felt like
she's not interested in marriage, at all.
Yeah.
She's so far beyond that at this point. She takes what she wants, and if Euron has something she wants and he's not willing to meet her price, then she's going to take it.
So so I felt like he didn't really think his plan through very well. But to your guys' point, it didn't seem like that's all it really took for people to get behind him, and so he did what he needed to do to put himself in power in that sense. So kudos to him, I guess. He knew what the people needed to hear. I just really see this not going well for him if he really tries to do this.
Do you think that so Yara stole all the boats that they had, like the existing boats. Her and Theon took off, stole everything. Where do you think she's going? Is she trying to go see Dany before Euron, or what's her plan there? Do you know?
Yeah, that's kind of a mystery to me too. Yeah. So I'm pretty clueless, honestly. I'm kind of in the dark. This is, again, talking about we're leaving the book territory. This kind of sort of happens in the books in a very different way. Like Euron just sails off and you don't know where he's going. And then in fact, technically, officially, we don't still know where he's gone, but Martin's put out some sample chapters from the new book where you find out, he's going to Dany. So it's I'm not sure, because Yara her role in that storyline is much different. Theon's not even around. So I'm like, does she go warn Dany? Is she just trying to take the ships away so that he doesn't have them? And if so, who is she going to back up? I mean, because the Greyjoys aren't exactly, like your A-list, family or house, but they've got boats. So they potentially, whoever they end up siding with could, be a pretty strong ally.
Yara would go into this as like a partnership because she knows how to make friends, I think. And like how to build alliances, but Euron, that's not really his thing, I don't think. We'll see.
I think and I feel like this whole season has really dealt a lot with just women and women in leadership roles and their role in society and stuff like that. And so, I think that's partly why they fell behind Euron so quickly, because he was a guy and Yara was not a guy.
Yeah.
And so, obviously Daenerys has to deal with that all the time as well. She's already gone through marrying somebody for gain, and it didn't work out very well. multiple times actually.
Yes. We always forget about the second guy,
Yeah.
the Mereen guy. We always forget about him. He's dead.
For me, just sitting here right now, just the idea of seeing Daenerys and Yara in a scene together just seems really exciting. So
I think this scene, this really is kind of the big women's season. I mean, they've always been, I think, aside from a few controversies in the past, women have had a really significant role in the show, been more well-rounded and well-written than I think most TV shows. But they've also been subjugated by the society they're in, by and large. They've always had to kind of been reduced to kind of pulling the strings, kind of like Cersei, or kind of be a shadow player, if that much, So, but this is the forefront. Brienne, also another big kind of solo player, unless Tormund has his way. So I will say again, and I've mentioned this a couple times, and it's not a criticism, it's just a difference in style from when we're adapting Martin's works. I feel like the stuff that happened in the scene was like in the past would have been like 3 or 4 episodes worth of material. Oh, I think you killed Balin. Yep, I sure did. Oh, okay. Well, I got that out of the way real quick. So, not that that's a problem. I think it's a different, interesting difference to kind of what we're used to seeing. There was a lot of stuff that happened real fast, and a lot of things where you're like, oh, okay. As a viewer, you're like, that makes sense, logic connects, but it's not as fleshed out as I think it would have been in the past. In this particular case, I'm cool with it because I want to see the Greyjoys do some cool stuff. So, but that's enough of the Greyjoys, Austin.
There's less foreplay with Benioff and Weiss.
So we're going to go ahead and head elsewhere across the sea over to Braavos. And guys, I feel like I'm having what's that called? Deja vu. Okay. So Arya passed her tests and now she's being given a quest to kill an actress this time. Now, who's actually an actress from the Babadook. Anyway, I feel like we did this last year, where she went and she was supposed to kill the guy with the clamshells or whatever, and then she didn't do it, and she went on her vengeful streak. So here we're again. I found this now. However, I found this whole scenario to be significantly more interesting than what we saw last season. I don't know, just I liked the kind of meta text that we were getting from the play within the show, and how like Westeros kind of looks at the historical events that were going on. It's kind of like you're watching the SNL version of Westeros. That was kind of cool, and I feel like the ambiguity of the person she's trying to kill, this actress who is, I mean, she looks like a human being. She didn't really look like a good person, but she seemed like a fine person, just, drinking, hanging out with her other actor buddies. That was kind of cool. So I found that to be kind of more fascinating. Daniel, what did you kind of make of the scene with Arya's kind of quest to scope out the actress this week?
Yeah, this definitely could be a deja vu thing, but I don't think it's going to. I do think that we've seen that Arya, at least this time around, seems to be a lot more invested in the she is no one mentality. I actually really found the play to be really, really hilarious. It was very funny. And it was really cool to see how Arya reacted to that. Maybe hinting at maybe she's not all the way to no one as we thought. But yeah, I don't know. It was interesting, but it's just a lot of setup right now. And we've been talking about it already. If something significant doesn't happen, this would feel like another wasted season with her in a sense. So I don't know. I really hope that something significant happens with her pretty soon. So,
yeah, the play was kind of fun. I enjoyed it. Jacob, what did you make of the scene?
Another good scene. Like for me, I thought it was just such a great example of world building, and I thought the play was just so kind of a perfect. Kind of showing that the world extends beyond just the Starks and the Lannisters, and there's people who this is just their life, and they need entertainment, and they need So I thought that was incredibly interesting, and then I just felt so. I just couldn't imagine what it would be like for her in that moment, seeing that play, having seen those things take place in person with her own eyes, and then seeing people essentially making fun of these horrible tragedies in her life. That'd be tough for anybody.
Right.
And so, but I thought that was just such a great, but they handled it really well and really subtly. Like there wasn't this huge musical cue of, oh, she's going through such turmoil right now. It was all her performance and in the staging and everything. So yeah, no, I thought it was cool. I think it's essentially kind of, the scene itself is essentially more just kind of set up for things that to come. And like you said, it feels familiar, but I think it's supposed to feel very familiar at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's a good point. I mean, it's to remind you that she did fail a test last year, so in a way, she has to come back up and do something similar. And that's the question I kind of beg the question: is this the same test? Is she actually supposed to kill the actress? Because this appears to be more moral ambiguity with this particular person than the guy last year. I mean, she scoped him out. I mean, again, from what we saw, he was pretty much a scumbag who was ripping a bunch of people off. Versus, an actress who's, again, entertainer, no harm, no foul. I mean, unless she's got some secret underworld in Braavos that she's crime setting and she's running. I mean, she's just a person. And I did like that Arya pointed that out to Jack when she said, well, she seems like a pretty nice guy. And he's all like, well, death doesn't take the bad people. He takes everybody.
So yes, he does say that. But with this scene, I'm so sick of Arya's storyline at this point. Like, wake me up when she does something meaningful. But I think the Faceless Men are still interesting. And he brings up a point in this where he talks about, well, the price has been paid already. This has to happen. I think we often forget, I always end up viewing them as like a religious institution, and they're really not that. They're mercenaries. They take giant sums of money as hitmen and then go kill people. And what does Arya get out of this? Like, she's a slave basically to people who are making tons of money off of these hits. So it just kind of makes you wonder, one, where is this money going? What are the real motivations behind the Faceless Men? Are they really a religious institution? Is it really about the god of death, or are they more, mercenaries?
Yeah, so it's more. In this scene, that isn't the emphasis of this particular scene, but you're right. It does kind of build to the mystery of the Faceless Men, because they are a really fascinating organization, because we don't really know anything about them. You're right. They do take contracts. They totally take contracts, because we've heard referenced a few times. Oh, why don't we just bring the Faceless Men in to do X? And apparently they're very expensive. So that's interesting. I think I definitely fall on the side of more like Jacob and Daniel. I really liked it, even though it does feel a little familiar. I thought the play was kind of funny too, and I think getting to not only seeing how Arya reacts, but to see how other people react, see how Tyrion is portrayed. Like, everyone really thinks he's a monster. Like, that's what the world sees him as. And it's kind of funny, but you're also kind of like, that's a bummer. But at the same time, they kind of see Robert for what he was, which is kind of a joke, kind of a washed up, warrior. So I don't know, just super interesting world. I think the world building really is the big takeaway from there. And I think that for me, that's what makes this work a lot more than what we saw last year. Briefly, we got really only one scene with Dany this week outside of Vos Dothrak. And it was a pretty packed scene, a packed and emotional punch, I should say, which is the scene between her and Jorah. So basically, they are leaving Vos Dothrak and heading back towards what we assume is Mereen. And really, the only scene was between her and Jorah, and basically just saying, "Hey, I can't believe that you came back for me twice." I don't know, just really, it was just a kind of a way to encapsulate their entire relationship into like one scene. I keep telling you to go away, and you just keep coming back, and I'm thankful, because I wouldn't be here if you didn't. But you're still kind of a threat, and I still kind of don't want you around. Is that kind of weird? I don't know. I feel for Jorah here.
And I don't think it's weird, really. I mean, this was a scene, I think, because we might have seen the end of Jorah. I think this is his send-off, basically. I could be wrong. Maybe he does something amazing, comes back, cures himself or something. But I in my heart, I believe Jorah is kind of done now. So it was, to your point, just a scene to kind of share that emotional connection between them that they had, and kind of reinforce that before he walks off into the sunset.
I feel like this scene, although it couldn't have happened 2 seasons ago, the impact would have been greater 2 seasons ago, when we were really in the middle of their relationship, and him being so utterly devoted to her, and her, banishing by the point. Now, I know that, he couldn't have come back twice and all that stuff, but I think the idea of what's going on here, I think, would have been a lot more impactful prior to this, because we were in the midst of that, and we were going back and forth on, whether or not Dany should banish him and all those types of things. So I think it lost a little bit of its impact because of just they've been apart for so long, and so that the feelings or the emotions that were involved there aren't as strong, or don't feel as strong. But yeah, I think I tend to agree with Austin, though, that this was probably just his little, like, this was his recognition that Dany did care about him. And for Jorah, that's all, that was a really good thing to hear, that he would, as he walked away, she brought him back and commanded him to, go and heal himself, which I don't think he's going to. But I think for him, it was just a big moment for him realizing that she did value what he meant to her. But I do think that this is probably it for him.
I think I disagree. I have a feeling Jorah is going to come back at some point, and even if it's just to die. But I was reminded earlier today that Stannis' daughter also had that same
grayscale,
and she was cured of it, or at least it stopped killing her. And so there is something out there that can stop it.
Yeah.
And so whether he finds it or not, I don't know. But that didn't quite feel like a send off for good scene. It felt like he'll be back at some point.
Yeah, this would be the worst send off scene ever. I'm totally with you, Jacob. I know, guys, I've always put Jorah up on a pedestal to pretty much everyone's detriment, but I feel so bad for the guy's a hopeless romantic, and he just can't win. But he's so respected. That's what's so it's like what's frustrating and infinitely respectable about him. And I think and I feel like the audience and Daenerys are supposed to be on the same page here. It's like, man, you just don't know when to give up. I mean, at this point, I love you and I care about you. And that was a really touching scene when he said Tyrion was right. I love you. And confession of love, and that's what's so heartbreaking. God damn it. It's so heartbreaking. I don't think this is it, though. I think he's definitely, I think Jacob was right. I think if anything, he probably comes back like at the very end of this shindig with some sort of cure. I think we Samwell Tarly him or Bran him, where he like literally goes away for like 5 or 6 episodes and pops up maybe. And knowing Game of Thrones history, he'll pop up somewhere totally different. He'll pop up in Westeros again somewhere in the north. Maybe he tries to go back to Bear Island, back home, now that he knows he's got his life's. Actually, that'd be kind of fitting. He'd go back to the north, House Mormont, to help Jon out. I don't know, because they're trying to rally the houses up north. But
everybody. Or are you just assuming he finds a cure before that?
He's gonna infect Ramsay Bolton. So no, I don't think that's actually gonna happen. I just feel like a character of this magnitude to get like such a. I mean, it was a sweet scene. It was an emotionally powerful scene. But to think this is the last we'll see of a character who's been around since season 1 that means so much to both the audience and to Daenerys. I mean, she says, "I want you there when I take the throne." Like, that really means something. Now, he's probably not going to make it through this series, but I think there will be a moment where he will be called upon again. I don't know if he finds a cure, but he will be back. I'm confident.
What I think is kind of interesting about this whole scene and the sequence, one, I think it's a impeccably directed sequence and very, very subtle. Really just 3 people standing around and 2 of them are talking. One of them isn't even talking. But also it's interesting, after last week, our last scene with Daenerys and where we left off with her, it's very interesting that something so flashy last week begins with something very still and quiet with just 3 people. I think I assumed we would see the army rallying around her or her doing something, but really she's completely separated from them. It's just the 3 of them, and really it's just a conversation between those 2. And I thought that was a really interesting way to follow up what we saw last week.
Yeah, and I think that maybe even adds to the impact. You know what I mean? Like, it adds to the importance of the scene. Hey, you just freaking got a Dothraki army and you're a goddess, and the first thing we see her do next is talk to Jorah.
Yeah. So
let's head on over to elsewhere in Essos and talk a little bit about Tyrion's his latest latest check-in with Tyrion's quest to bring peace to Mereen. And apparently it's worked. Apparently there was only 2 masters lynched, and it was the day of the treaty. And apparently the Sons of the Harpy have backed down. But Tyrion says no. He's an overachiever. He wants more. He wants better. He wants a fully armed and operational PR team to go out and to let the world know that Daenerys is the one who brought this victory and stopped the war. And then he decides to kind of try to enlist the Red Priestess or religion to be that voice. I think this plan, I'm pretty confident, is going to backfire in massive ways somehow. Just a thought. I don't know.
We've definitely never seen this exact same plan ever backfire before, say in King's Landing with the sparrows. He's doing the exact same thing his sister did. Like, yeah, exactly. He's trying to use a religious institution to his advantage, and it's a little different in this, in that the Red Priestess already pretty much basically supports Dany, and so there's less convincing to be going on here. Whereas Cersei, I think, was really, really trying much harder to manipulate the situation than Tyrion currently is.
I didn't even think about the Sparrows parallel. I was thinking more in terms of like Stannis enlisting Melisandre, but I know that is actually even more relevant, I would say. I think the High Sparrow is evidence of religious institution religious zealotry, I should say, given too much power, especially in such a dangerous time.
I kind of feel the same thing as Austin. I think that they're definitely making a mistake by giving her the trust, but I think that if they were going to run with this plan of having someone to speak positively about Dany, this was probably the only person you could come up with. So I understand why they went with it, but I think Tyrion might be underestimating the Lord of Light, which he hasn't had many interactions with the Lord of Light and his priestesses as the audience has. So I don't know if he knows what he's fully getting into, which is interesting because, a couple episodes we got the statement where Tyrion said, I drink and I know things. And here we have the priestess looking at them and saying, you don't know the things you need to know, basically. So that was kind of interesting. But one thing I did get from this a little bit, which it's not going to matter too much, is that you hinted at it a little bit, is that the planet right now is semi-working. They called it a fragile peace, I think is what they called it. Perhaps this is his first baby steps to getting the trust of Grey Worm and Melisandre, and maybe Dany if she ends up coming this way, which, who knows how that's all going to work out. But I really enjoyed the scene with Varys as well, how he tried to kind of overstep Tyrion. I didn't really see him as the kind of guy to do that, because he seems, he's the guy behind the scenes with all the birds and all the information, and he feeds it to someone and they take care of it. But then he's the one that stands up and questions her, which I think she should be questioned, but it just made them not look on the same page. And so they didn't, I don't know. I feel like this is headed down a bad path for the both of them.
Yeah, I think typically, and this is a little different than what we've seen. Varys, his role in Mereen is not the same as it was in King's Landing. He has a lot more authority here, and we've seen every time we've seen him do something here, it's always been way more forward than anything he did in King's Landing, because he was always self-preservation. He always had enemies. Here, he trusts Tyrion. I really legitimately think he does. So I feel he is more confident. He's got more of a leadership role. And secondly, you have to remember, he does not like the red people. He doesn't like the Lord of Light. That all terrifies him for reasons stated in the scene. Jacob, what did you make of this kind of exchange here?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting to see Varys in a kind of a different light, especially he's usually he can be in pretty scary situations and remain fairly calm. You can see him agitated or whatever, but it was really interesting to see. You rarely see him shaken that much when she started talking to him. And kind of started revealing some things. I also thought it was interesting how last week Tyrion was like, "No, this plan, it's great. This plan is great. It's enough. It'll get us through for now." And then it worked, and immediately he's like, "Okay, well, we can go farther," Yeah. And so I thought that was just a lot of kind of interesting things going on.
Yeah. I mean, it's as far as having Tyrion do something, I feel like this is probably one of his weaker storylines of the series so far, but I find it fascinating. It does say something about his character. He's always pushing the threshold. He's pushing that line, seeing how far he can go, and he's not wrong. I mean, you have a victory, but you don't just settle with it. Like, if you really want to get the job done, it's baby steps. You have to say, all right, here's what we're going to do. And once we accomplish this thing, then we're going to move on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. You don't settle, especially when you have his goals are, crazy ambitious. He wants to keep Mereen from falling apart and keep Slaver's Bay from killing him. So he is playing it smart, and he's also not playing his whole hand for everybody, telling him what his long-term thinking is. All right, well, let's head to the north, where I really think the bulk of the episode took place. We had a lot of really great stuff in the North this week. First of which, probably one of my favorite scenes of the episode was Sansa and talking to Peter Baelish right at the top of the episode. And, ooh, man, talk about characters getting thrown off balance. Baelish was not expecting her to be so assertive. I don't think at all. He thought he had her wrapped around his finger. He was like, I've got this army. We're here to save you. We're gonna team up with Jon and we're gonna go take your home back. And she's all like, nope, none of that. I don't trust you. She's seeing through the veil that is Peter Baelish. And honestly, I mean, understandably upset. I gotta give credit. I got to give credit to Sansa. She's even smarter about this whole situation than I thought she would be. Not to say I think she was dumb. I still thought she'd have just a hint more trust for him than what she did, honestly. So I mean, Baelish was just totally off balance. So we always see him so confident, and he was actually apologetic in a way that we've never seen remotely from him. And it was really kind of a big just change of dynamics, and makes you question where this whole scenario is going.
So the one thing she didn't do, so she clearly has learned a lot from Peter Baelish. The one thing she didn't do, though, was take the position of power that she was in that situation and spin it more to her advantage, as Baelish would have done. If he smelled blood, he would then spin everything to benefit him in some way. And she got the information about Blackfish, but that's only because Baelish totally surrendered that.
It was also still strategery on his part too.
Yeah, it was. He has a plan. So. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to actually comment on. Is my initial reaction was just like kind of what you guys were saying. I was really excited that Sansa was stepping up, and it's clear that she's learned from Littlefinger. This seems like what she's doing seems like something Littlefinger should be doing, and I think she's definitely right in the sense that she said, I believe, if you didn't know who he was, you're an idiot, and if you did know who he was, you're an enemy, which she's 100% correct in that scenario. He's supposed to be the one that knows everything. How could he not know this? So I think what she says is correct. However, I wasn't as positive about this scene as maybe you guys were. She let him know right up front that she didn't trust him. And I don't know if that was necessarily the smartest move that she could make, because this is Littlefinger we're talking about here. Because she did that so quickly, I'm not 100% convinced that what he tells her is the truth. And I think he may be setting her up because she just let him know that, they're no longer on the same side. So I don't know. I think that that information might not be as, I don't think she can trust it as much as she maybe thinks she can.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think this scene shows less about how manipulative Sansa can be, because that's not really what this was, and more about how much more confidence she has now. She's willing to take situations into her own hands, even if she doesn't necessarily have the skill set to really spin everything into the way that she wants it to go. At the very least, she's standing up for herself. She is taking control of her own destiny, which we started to see hints of in the past, but really I think she's there now. She has a firm grasp on what she wants and how she wants to do it.
Throughout the season, the Stark kids are really starting to become the Stark adults now, and they're really starting to fulfill the roles that their parents left behind when they were tragically murdered. And I kind of feel like, especially with that scene with Sansa, it was just it felt like a direct kind of comment upon. There's been a lot of in the past seasons some controversy over the way women are treated in the show. And I feel like that scene was kind of directly confronting those and kind of giving the women in the show, through Sansa, a time to speak up and say, yes, these are horrible things that are happening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that she was raped. And I liked that he did not. I mean, again, it's not a manipulation thing, but man, that just was ballsy. I mean, she didn't back down at all. He's like, what did you think he did to me? No. What did you think he did to me? I needed you to tell exactly what did you think he did to me?
Interesting how he kind of skirted around it. He tried to say anything except the one thing.
For the one thing, right? Yeah. And he couldn't get out of it. And she's calling him on his crap. As a Peter Baelish loyalist, I really want to see him. I'm sure he has his upper sleeve. He has the upper hand here still. I think the information he gave her Stoll is true. I really do. But I think he's going to use that to buy her trust back. And not only that, I'm not saying, don't think that, again, this is Baelish. I don't think the way he dispersed that information to Sansa, who did not reveal to Jon where she got it from. Plus, again, it's a very Littlefinger thing. He gave her information. She does not want to reveal who gave it to her. He could just as easily give that information to anyone else, any other enemy of the Starks, and use that to his advantage as well. And I'm sure he probably will because he's Littlefinger. So I'm still not sure what side he's going to end up on here. I still ultimately I think he's going to end up fighting for Jon the Starks. I'd be really down if he fought for the Boltons. Yeah. I'd be really upset and disappointed in Peter Baelish. It's a bad call. But
I feel like I don't know. I feel like in past seasons we kind of understand what we thought his goal was, but I think things have changed so much. I'm not even sure he knows what his plan is, or if he's just kind of winging it and going wherever the winds seems to be in best his favor.
Chaos is a ladder. And that's the thing about Baelish is there's times when you're sure he's like Moriarty and he's got everything just planned out to a T. And then there's other moments, especially in like season 4 and 5, where he's just seems like he's playing every side and just kind of, like you said, sticking his finger out and seeing which way the wind's blowing and just following that. It's interesting. So again, I think I'm curious to see where this goes. Again, Sophie Turner, hats off. I mean, she is killing it with this material. It was funny on the red carpet interviews. Someone asked her, "What do you think about Sansa this season?" And she said, "I'm a badass bitch," and it was just like, it's just so funny. But no, this is women taking control of the situation in their own way. Now, I will say the most Littlefinger thing I think she did do was not telling Jon where she got it at. She just kind of like laid it out there. Oh, I heard about that from somebody. Which again is her, I think, she's no longer just this naive girl who's going to disperse information. She's going to be a little more strategic about it. And in this case, I think it's to protect herself, because I think that she still wants to keep the idea of having Baelish as an ally in her back pocket. Now, do you think they are going to be able to get enough troops, Team Jon, to actually fight the Boltons at Winterfell?
Well, this whole storyline feels very similar to the things that eventually led to the Red Wedding. How a Stark is rallying all the houses and all these armies, and then it led to, well, we all know where it led to. So I think for me, I'm just very leery of where things are going. I'm hoping it turns out better, but I've seen this show before. So
well, it seems so predictable. You're like, yeah, he's going to go take Winterfell back, and they're going to rule him like, wait, this is Game of Thrones. And we even talked kind of off the air, kind of when we're chattering, is what if they brought Jon back just so they could kill him again? Like, wouldn't that be awful? But just like such a Game of Thrones thing to do. Oh, you bring a character back from the dead. That means he's definitely like not going to die now. We can't get too comfortable. And I think if the show is being done right, we don't get too comfortable. That's the best thing about it, is we're always on our toes. Yeah. So at least me, I'm with you. I think everything seems like it's going really, really well. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe it shouldn't get so comfortable for our main characters.
I see what you're saying in the sense that they are similar, but this time it's different. We have someone who was dead and now has come back to life, and it's Jon, who was not actually a Stark. Not full Stark. He is, but there is a lot of hints. Sorry, I had like three thoughts at once. I want to say, well, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as, I probably should be a little bit more worried, but I'm really not. I feel like this has been the Stark season so far, outside of some of maybe the Bran stuff in this episode. So I don't know. I think that this will probably go well. I think we could see this them taking Winterfell could be like an end of the season, episode 9, episode 10 type of episode. I don't know all the details. I don't know how they're going to get all the houses or whatever men they're going to get on their side, if it's the Tullys. But I don't know. I feel like maybe for once we'll have the good guys maybe come out on top.
I think that I don't think anyone else is going to die from the Stark family, except for maybe Rickon. I think he's definitely in danger. Obviously, he's sitting with Ramsay Bolton. I think there will be a tragedy. I agree with Daniel. I think it's kind of an end of the season thing when they go back and take Winterfell. I think Peter Baelish is going to show up and help with his army. And I think that rather than Winterfell actually getting taken back, I think Winterfell is going to get torn to the ground. And that's going to be like the tragedy. I think all the Stark kids, they want so badly to have, a home again and kind of return to the way things were. And I think that's going to be like the final step of saying things will never be like they were.
Let's go ahead and move on to, I think, the really kind of big scene, the real big talking point here, which is going back beyond the wall to visit with Bran. And we got
we have to at least mention Tormund's smile, right? I mean,
okay,
that's just like the funniest moment in the entire episode somehow. It's just the way he smiled, man.
Happy with that comic relief that we got finally.
That is good. Redbeard versus Brienne. And it's just it's funny because of how grossly uncomfortable she looks to all this. She's just oh God. Is he looking at, oh my God, he's looking at me.
Back to what we were talking about last week on that particular, Brienne's not interested obviously at all, but it is kind of fun and hilarious to have this kind of interaction. So I'm glad they have it in there.
Yeah, I mean, a show is, dour as Game of Thrones can often be. You've got to have the comedic relief. And there was also a joke about Ed being Lord of the Knights, the Lord of Commander of the Night's Watch, which was kind of funny. He's like, Lord Commander, do we shut the gate? And he's just like, I'm not the... Oh, shit. Yeah, close the gates. So, kind of a good bit there. I feel like we've probably seen the last of the wall for a bit. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, but with the Starks all dispersing and everyone kind of going their own way, I feel like they're going to reconvene somewhere other than the wall, a little closer to Winterfell, if I had to guess. At least that's kind of where it seems to go. And the fact they went out of their way to show them shutting the gate, I mean, it is a good joke, but I do feel like maybe this is the last time we've seen Winterfell the wall this season. I don't know. Could be wrong, but yeah, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about going the real heavyweight discussion talking point here is the last probably 10, maybe 15 minutes of the episode. Bran's storyline. Holy crap, guys. I mean, not only just firing on all cylinders. We got tons of crucial information. We got some revelations that I don't think we fully understand yet. And we got probably one of the more emotional deaths on the show, if not the most emotional. I don't know. We'll have to see what you guys think. But I mean, first we get the creation of the White Walkers. I mean, come on, that's huge. I didn't know that. That's not book material right there. That's new. That's a huge deal. So basically, the Children of the Forest, which are those little green kids we've seen who are up there at the Three-Eyed Raven's tree. Apparently, they were trying to us humans. We came in and we started tearing those trees down. So, basically, whatever the case may be, mankind showed up to Westeros and started attacking nature, chopping down trees, probably killing a lot of the Children of the Forest they found. So they said, "Hey, we've got to defend ourselves. So we're gonna use our magic." And again, there's a lot left off the table as far as specifics, but I think we get the gist of it, which is we need to protect ourselves. We're going to make these beings that we're going to kind of create Frankenstein in a way. These guys, they create the White Walkers, but then backfires and turn on them. They're also trying to kill the human beings. So the humans. So I thought that was super cool. It also a really nice visual callback. The way the rocks were surrounded around the tree. I don't know if you guys remember in the very first scene of the show, there's that scene where the human body parts are laid out in this really weird, intricate design. And then I think there was another one or two times. I'm thinking like season 3 or 4, because I remember it was the King Beyond the Wall. Mance Rayner. He made a comment about, he's like, the bloody artist. And it was another one of those really weird kind of spiral art formations. So I thought that was a really cool visual callback to where maybe they got that inspiration, the way the rocks were surrounded around the big tree that they were created in. This is really an interesting idea of the creation trying to be their creator. I think kind of some ideas that visual ideas at work there anyway. But what did you guys think? Did this live up? Do you think this is a cool revelation? Do you think this makes sense? What did you make of the creation of the White Walkers?
For me, the kind of revelation of how the White Walkers were created, it was not something I saw coming exactly. But when it happened, it was kind of like one of those things where oh, of course, that makes a lot of sense. It definitely wasn't mind-blowing in any way. And I don't know that the origin of them really has a massive impact on the story, as far as I can tell right now anyway. But it was definitely interesting and helped really flesh out, what we're dealing with and why these problems are what they are right now.
When it does cause I think it does add to the complication. The Children of the Forest, who again they really didn't show up until this season for all intents and purposes. It kind of shows that they're dynamic. They're not totally pro mankind either. But
I think you're right. I think it says more about the Children of the Forest than the White Walkers, actually.
Yeah, and it does set the tone that basically it gives you a better understanding of the bigger picture, which is, where did this apocalyptic force come from? Well, there's actually some sort of agenda there. We don't know what that is yet, but we understand that they were created and they're kind of a dog off their chain for whatever reason. And they probably have a right to be upset because that was a human that was strapped to the tree. It's very much a mythology thing that the show didn't have to have for the story to work. It's kind of like, when you read in the Silmarillion that the orcs were created from like really messed up, elves. And you're like, oh, that's cool. That's a fun fact, but it doesn't really change the Lord of the Rings series at all.
And I think it's interesting how the Children of the Forest, and we haven't seen them that much, like you're mentioning, and yet now it appears that if they might all be dead because they all tried to stop their own creation. There might be more out there that we haven't seen, but as far as it looked like, all the ones gathered there are now deceased. And so it's kind of interesting how they're the ones that created them, and then eventually, hundreds of years later, that creation ends up taking them all out. And also, like one time I read a theory about how like the White Walkers could be kind of a metaphor for like climate change and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like, this actually kind of fits that idea a lot, in that like, whereas the Children of the Forest kind of represent like nature and all that, and how man has kind of distorted that and destroyed it, and nature is kind of fighting back, and it's going out of control.
We'll go ahead and look at the three-eyed raven. So apparently Bran he's getting a little I'm curious, really curious more than anything. And so he decides to go into his little vision, his green seer vision sequence by himself. And of course he sees the army of the dead, sees the Night's King. And apparently the Night's King can also make that kind of telepathic whatever connection. And he grabs onto Bran, and all of a sudden that breaks whatever spell was keeping the White Walkers out. So now he's like, all right, we're in danger. Max von Sydow is like, crap. All right, well, I've got to download like 18 gigs into your brain. We've got like 2 seconds, so let's hurry this up.
It's kind of ridiculous that the one thing he should have downloaded to his brain beforehand was, hey, never let them touch you ever.
I felt like that was pretty pitiful information. He probably should have told Bran before. He even
knew that this was going on beforehand. I mean, we've had scenes where, at the Tower of Joy where he talks to Ned and all this stuff, but he never really told Bran, like, hey, you can actually interact with these people and things happen, they change. And the Three-Eyed Raven definitely knew it and chose not to disclose that information. Just a really strange choice.
I mean, I'm wondering if it's kind of like, in the Matrix, whenever the I can't remember what she's called, the kind of the seer or whatever,
Oracle,
the Oracle, essentially, gives him the information that he needs to eventually make him do what he's supposed to do, not necessarily the information that's factual, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
So I'm kind of wondering if there's some of that going into it, and once you get into these kind of we haven't quite touched on it yet, but the time travel aspects and stuff like that in the scene, obviously he needed to do that for him to ever get where he is now.
Right. Oh man, guys, did I call it 2 weeks ago or what? I said I think we're getting into time travel, and it totally happened.
You did, and I said I don't think he can affect the past, and I was totally wrong.
Well, and we were both right though, and I said I don't think it's any coincidence that Jack Bender, the most prolific Emmy-winning director from Lost, was working on this episode in particular, because we don't know yet. But I get this feeling that it's one of those, the ink has dried. That doesn't mean he can't even impact. The thing is, he's always left an impact. Like whatever he did to Hodor here, that's always what happened to Hodor. Like Hodor, he had to have done that in that moment for Hodor to end up the way he did. It's just it's a time loop. Yeah. It's a time paradox, loop that he's caught.
Maybe that's the reason why the Three-Eyed Raven chose not to disclose any information. Because, I think you were talking about this a little bit, Jacob. Is he didn't want to change what he knew was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's an interesting point too. So we'll go ahead and unpack the rest of the scene because just because so much happens so fast, and then we'll kind of backstep here and talk a little more about the Hodor thing, a little more of the time travel, and then kind of maybe where we think it's heading. So basically, you see he goes back in and he sees Hodor. I find it really weird that the Three-Eyed Raven picked that particular moment to be the last thing he showed to him. Maybe there was something that he was about to show him, or maybe the Three-Eyed Raven's like, yeah, I know this has to happen, so I have to put you here. It's one of those time paradox things.
That's exactly it. I think he brought him there because he knew this is what has to happen to get you out of this place.
Yeah, and also going along with that is, this is going to have a lifelong lasting effect on Bran. He's going to go through the process of blaming himself and all that whole scenario. And maybe that's part of it as well. He needs to see what he did, what his, mistake, whether it was allowed or not or whatever. He needs to see that what his mistake and what, if he's not handling his power correctly, what it can do to people. So I think that might be part of it as well.
Was it his mistake though? Like the whole thing just happened so fast. I mean, yes, it happened because of him. Like obviously his presence in that moment it was this really weird. The whole connection was really, really weird. So he was there with the Three-Eyed Raven, and he heard Mira saying, "Hold the door," which then somehow through Bran, young Hodor heard, which then obviously caused him to freak out because Bran was, making a weird connection with him. So the whole thing was kind of really unusual. I feel like there's definitely a lot of ambiguity in what happened there, personally. But obviously, I think you're right, though, Daniel. I think it did, whether or not it was his fault or not, it does teach him that, oh man, first off, apparently I can affect something. So I think it's gonna give him more weight to the decisions he makes. And honestly, maybe he doesn't want to jump right back in. Maybe he doesn't go touch it because he's gonna be. Maybe he doesn't go find another weirwood tree immediately to kind of tap back into.
I don't know. I was just gonna say real quick. I don't know if this matters. I guess I didn't read it the same way. I didn't feel like he heard that Hodor or Willis heard Mira. I thought that it was the fact that Bran tried to warg while in the vision and ends up warging into Hodor in the vision almost. I thought I felt it more.
But he's definitely Hodor is definitely clearly repeating what Mira is saying over and over and over again.
And then I guess I thought it was part of Bran's brain hearing Mira in Hodor's brain. I thought it was the connection didn't get made all the way. And so half of Hodor's there and half of Bran was there. I could be way wrong. Maybe you're right. And maybe, I don't know. That's how I initially thought.
I think that's kind of what I was thinking too. I think it just kind of through the connection of him and just the since he was already in the vision and trying to warg through there. I think it was just kind of, the connectors weren't quite in the right places, and it ended up scrambling Hodor's brain because his brain wasn't built to handle that, basically.
Yeah, and it's super clear, but I think it ties together just enough for it to make sense. Because I think you and Daniel were probably right. I think that's what they were going for. It just was a little. And honestly, this was not a thing they intended for us to think that much about, honestly. But I don't think the logic here is what matters. I think what matters is the emotional connection we have to Hodor, the emotional connection we have to Bran, and the big takeaway is that yes, Bran does have a power to impact and it's dangerous and it cost Hodor his life. I mean, talk about tragedy, man. Hodor literally he's trapped. He can't do anything. He's just stuck being Hodor. Because of that, he's gonna fry his brain when he's a kid, and that's all he can do. And then he dies protecting Bran. So
I think now the way I look at it, Bran is the most powerful person in the entire Game of Thrones universe. This is a person who can go back, he can change the past, and therefore, change events that will happen in the future. Someone on Reddit actually thought, well, maybe, we had a similar situation with the Mad King where he just repeats, burn them all, burn them all, burn them all over and over. Maybe he was mad because of a situation like this. Maybe it wasn't Bran necessarily, but maybe the Three-Eyed Raven did something in the past that actually turned the king crazy.
That would be a scenario where it could work. I think the Mad King was just crazy. It'd be really weird if all of a sudden Bran stepped into that. I think the idea of the Mad King just being a crazy guy makes a lot more sense than time travel Bran doing it. But I like the way your head's at. I I don't think he can change anything, Austin, though. That's my point. I really don't. I think because the way the time travel, we'll see. We'll have to test this again when he decides to try and change something again. But I think whatever he will do will ultimately cause whatever it is he's trying to change. Like, that's just how the cycle of it. You know, what's done is done. I don't think the show is lying to us. I don't think the Three-Eyed Raven's lying. The ink has dried, but that doesn't mean. But you're a part of that. You have to be a part of it for the events that have occurred to occur.
It's all, yeah. I mean, I know what you're saying. It all depends on what flavor of time travel they're going for in this. And I don't think we've seen enough to be able to know that yet. Yeah.
Right. Well, I just watched Looper for the Good Trash Genre Cast this last week, and Jeff Daniels has a great line. He's like, I don't want to talk about time travel. It just fries your brain like an egg. But the death of Hodor, this was sad. This was really sad. This is not as graphic as Robb Stark's dead, but man, I felt way more. I kind of cried a little. I mean, I got glossy-eyed. I certainly was pretty upset too, because Hodor was such a beloved character who's like a teddy bear. He's like a teddy bear. George R. R. Martin, he's like a teddy bear. Or I guess Benioff and Weiss in this case. He's a teddy bear. Like, he's just this thing, he's cuddly, he's harmless. How dare you? He's so innocent. And I know this is Game of Thrones, but you always expect him to be safe, especially because he's like Bran's protector in a way. So for such an innocent, and then the extra layer of tragedy we get right in the moment of his death is just, it was a hard one to swallow.
I think it's a unique death in that a lot of the deaths that we have in Game of Thrones, there's no build up to it. You don't really ever always see it coming. I mean, when we had the Red Wedding, it's like he's dead, and it's more, your reaction to it, at least my reaction, was more shock. This one was like sadness, because you felt a build up to it, and there was a tragic sense to it for someone who's like trying to save people and sacrifices himself, and that's not something we often see at Game of Thrones.
And it's also just the fact that you see why he's saying Hodor, and that we didn't get a build up to it as an audience. Like, his entire life was a build up to this moment, and that's why it's so sad, is because he's been saying this, hold the door, for years now, and his entire life has been going towards this point, and it's because of, for whatever, the Blood Raven or Bran, and the combination of all those things, and it's just like, for me, it is the most emotional death. I was with Caleb on there. I was tearing up during this, and I think that this was just one of the most tragic situations we've had on Game of Thrones.
It was just such a great reveal and a great build, because it's something that we didn't, as an audience, didn't realize we were building to, and they took a phrase, Hodor, which has essentially been comic relief for the past 5 seasons, and then turned it into like one of the most important phrases of the series. It's just, and it's just heartbreaking how connected it is to everything that's happened in the entire series.
No, I think it's really interesting how they were able to taking a bit of comedic relief and integrating that into one of the most crucial storylines the series has ever had, and in a way, none of us expected. I mean, we never would have thought time travel was an element in Game of Thrones. Or that Bran, and just the irony and the tragedy that Bran, the one he's been protecting the whole time, was the cause of that. Yeah. The whole life he lived is just all based around that one phrase: "Hold the door, hold the door." Yeah, really genius writing.
It's got to be said, though, the child actor did a fantastic job, because like his performance made it so that the audience could kind of come to the slow realization of what they were seeing. Just the delivery of the hold the door line and hold the door, and like the way it just kind of like slowly changed into Hodor was really, really good.
Oh man,
absolutely.
You're making the feels out again, Austin. Good grief. Hold the door. They don't really have any allies. They are literally out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by undead army. So it's kind of a really they're in a really terrifying spot, and I'm really, really curious to see where they go to. Because there are no other allies that we know of anywhere near that spot at all.
I was thinking about this, and there's only one character I could possibly think of that might be lost also out there in the middle of nowhere. And I'm thinking all the way back to season 1, Benjen Stark.
Benjen Stark, come back. Talk about. We'll definitely know if we get it previously on Game of Thrones. And you're like, what the heck?
So wait, I actually was going to bring that up. The scene with Hodor there's two kind of Stark children interacting. Is that Benjen and Ned?
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't think we've seen Brandon yet still.
Okay. So I
think
wondered that. I wondered if that was a hint that we were going to see Benjen again soon, but
It'd be a good way to segue into, hey, we're going to reintroduce Benjen, so let's have a scene with Benjen in it. And they've got it's just kind of clever planting those seeds so it doesn't seem as out of left field. Hey, I'd take some Benjen. I want to know what he's doing. I still don't know where he's at. I want to see Cold Hands, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to get a dude riding a moose with a helmet. Yeah.
what
Character.
What are you talking about?
There's a character in the books.
Oh, okay.
He's an
I was
awesome
like-
character from the book.
What did we go into
awesome
Rocky and
character that-
Bullwinkle? I don't know what's going on.
He is riding a moose. He's riding a moose, and he's got a hood. And a lot of people actually thought he might have been just Stark, but he's actually not really important. He's just kind of cool. He like shows up and helps
So he's
Bran.
got Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, kind of actually. Yeah, except for not as
that's a
cool.
good-
Or no, sorry, except for cooler. Sorry. Well, that'll kind of end our recap. Listeners, what did you guys think of the door? Did the Hodor door get the tears going for you too? Because if you did, you should totally tweet at us at good_trash or hit us up in those comments below. Because we really want to see what you guys thought of the episode and is this the best episode of Game of Thrones yet? Because Daniel Stoll certainly thinks so. I'm not sure I'm quite ready to make that statement, but it was a really powerful episode. Now we kind of have hinted a little bit about our thoughts and kind of some of the analysis, talking about like the women kind of taking on more of a leadership role. I kind of want to get some thoughts on like what do we think this episode is? What's kind of the theme and idea that's kind of at work in this episode? It might be playing into the season, the bigger story. I think the season's kind of telling.
I think in line with the name of the show, the episode The Door, I thought a little bit about kind of the opening of Pandora's box, a little bit for certain characters within this episode. You have like a situation with Sansa where she's starting to lie basically to her family and starting to try to go into that area of manipulation. Like you start to see little hints of it. So kind of the idea of like walking through that door, like taking your steps out into a new world for them a little bit, Daniel, that you were hinting at, I think. Obviously the situation with Bran, it's a whole new thing for him. The direction he's going, big changes for him. We also see a situation with Tyrion as he's, trying to open up new opportunities that may or may not backfire on him. So I think we see that kind of like Pandora's box theme a little bit in this episode.
I think I kind of agree with kind of the idea of the uncertainty, and because I feel like the season up until this episode was kind of teasing us with hope, which it hasn't done for the last few seasons, especially with the ending with Daenerys and the fire and all that. That hope that okay, maybe the people we're rooting for are going to be able to band together and maybe actually accomplish something. But I think this season kind of was like, okay, but it's going to be really hard if they can do that. And there's a lot of things that are going to get in the way. And, even with Bran, it's almost like, oh, wait, if his actions now cause that, like, does it matter? Is it just inevitable what's going to happen? Whatever it is.
That is the most Game of Thrones-y version of time travel ever. Yeah, it's a cool power, right? Except for you pretty much can't really change anything. You just make everything worse. You just create what's already happening right now. It's great. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I really kind of want to dovetail a little bit off of what you were saying, Austin. Pandora's box is an interesting kind of parallel there. Because I was thinking about unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Sansa, Littlefinger and Sansa. Littlefinger creating Sansa. Unintended consequence of him using her is that now she's turning on him. But I also think for her, the damage he's done to her is her unintended consequences, you said, is that she's now lying to her brother, which is a very deep bond of trust that they both value. And that is all because of the kind of mishandlings of Littlefinger. And I see that's something you see again with, of course, Bran, which is he trying to use these powers. He unwittingly lets the White Walkers in. He accidentally creates Hodor. Again, just, our characters like Tyrion, not unintended consequences yet, but the fact that he's letting the Red Priestesses take kind of a leadership role, all these things are kind of setting up for this, playing off this idea that you might have great intentions with whatever it is you're doing, even Littlefinger, who is using Sansa as a pawn, I still will argue cares about her. That has created a lot of conflict with all of the different characters, a lot of trials and tribulations for each of them, and there are consequences to those, no matter how good your intentions may be or not. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up here in a moment by just kind of kicking around some ideas about what next week's episode, Blood of My Blood, will be about. But first, Jacob, I want to say thank you so much for joining the cast Beyond the Wall tonight. It's been a real pleasure just kind of hanging out and talking Game of Thrones. Hope you had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
So you've got a film coming out, you've got a web series, and where would people look if they wanted to kind of keep up with your work?
Definitely, yeah. For Electric Nostalgia, we have a website, electricnostalgiafilms.com. My production company has a website, planetthunderfilms.com. And then our web series Talkies, you can find that at talkiesshow.com. And then you can find me at Twitter at boomdigadown.
My co-host, where can we find you online? Austin.
You can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is aclucari. If you want to check out that amazing Sam portrait I got, there's a picture there. Go check it out and make fun of me a little bit, I guess.
It's a great face to wake up to every morning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to put it on my bedside, maybe in the office, on my desk. It'd be great.
I wonder how your wife feels about that. Daniel, where can people find you online?
They can find me at Daniel Stull, Stull 23. And yeah, I'd love to talk to anyone about Game of Thrones and how they felt about this season so far.
All right, great, and of course you can always find me and all the these days all the rage on goodtrashmedia.com. You can also find my online portfolio at calebmasters.net, or you can follow me on Twitter at BigCalKenobi91. If you want to tweet at me about, Game of Thrones mostly, movies a lot. I love the movies a lot. Occasionally video games. Now, I also want to remind you guys, we are a podcast on the Good Trash Media Network. So if you want to check out more of the things we do, we have a discussion of Looper going up next week. We've got we've got a Nice Guys review that's going to go up tomorrow. Hope you guys will check that out. So a lot of really, really cool stuff. With Jacob on, we do have Dead Center coming up. We have a lot of really cool things in plan. So if you're in the Oklahoma City Metro and you have any interest in, what's going on here in the film scene, that's we're going to have a lot of really cool stuff hitting the website for that as well. And lastly, if you guys like what we do here on Good Trash Media, if you really like listening to our podcast, if you really like the Cast Beyond the Wall and kind of this weekly recap, and you want to see us do more, and you want to be able to contribute to what we put on the website, we really, really appreciate if you could check us out on patreon.com/GTM and consider giving to us more. These shows do take a lot of work and a lot of time, and we love doing them, but ultimately your money is going to tell us, how much more do you guys want to see it. So if you guys could head on over to patreon.com/GTM and be like one of our most recent patrons, Carrie, we would love to have your support. All right, gents, really quickly, just briefly, we've got next week's episode titled Blood of My Blood. Now, this is a kind of a saying we've heard several times tossed around. Usually, obviously, people talking about their lineage. So, is this going to be the week? Jon Snow lineage. Is this it?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I don't think that's it yet. I think they're going to drag that one out for the rest of the season. But I do think we're going to see a lot of good family themes. I think there's a possibility that Marjorie Tyrell is pregnant. Just going to put that out there. So, we'll see.
That would be cool. I didn't thought about that. Very nice. Daniel, you have any thoughts on next week's episode, Blood of My Blood?
Well, I believe Blood of My Blood is specifically a Dothraki saying. So I think that maybe we'll see something happen with Daenerys. I'm not exactly sure what, but probably the family theme is probably a good prediction on what might be able to happen next week.
I think I kind of agree with you guys. I think it's, and of course, like family is kind of a theme of the show all the time. But yeah, I think... I think it'll just be interesting to kind of check in, because we didn't check in with King's Landing at all this week, so I'm interested to see what's happening out there.
Yeah. The teaser. Do you watch the teasers, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The teaser definitely implies that we're going to get at least a really big-ass standoff next week between the Sparrows and the Tyrell army.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I don't know. There was this scene in the first trailer for the show that came up with Jamie riding a horse with an army behind him, and I'm always like, all right, where's the money shot? I want to see it. So I'm really excited. I think that's going to be a good deal. And as we talked about last week, guys, the High Sparrow stuff, I am really intrigued by that, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. So yeah, that's very exciting stuff. I don't really have much to add other than the fact that I think family obviously being the huge point next week. So, all right, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in this week on our recap, review, and discussion of Season 6, Episode 5, The Door. We can't wait for you to join us again next week when we go Beyond the Wall.